recognized as well for the wonderful support they have provided through the years. For here at us at Iowa State University, it represents the successful completion of our most important responsibility to society, to educate the next generation of scholars and leaders. We take great pride in that accomplishment and the achievement by our newest graduates of this very significant educational milestone. I would now like to introduce the members of the platform party. Dr. Peggy Whitson, NASA astronaut, today's honorary degree recipient and commencement speaker. Dr. Jonathan Whitman, Senior Vice President and Provost. Dr. Thomas Hill, Senior Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Kathann Kress, Vice President for Extension and Outreach. Dr. Martino Harmon, Associate Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Pamela Anthony, Dean of Students. Dr. Olivia Madison, Dean of the Library. Dr. Simon Estes, F. Wendell Miller Distinguished Artist in Residence and Commencement Vocalist. Mr. Jeffrey Johnson, President of the Iowa State University Alumni Association. Dr. David Holden, Associate Provost for Academic Programs and Dean of the Graduate College. Dr. Wendy Winterstein, Endowed Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Dr. Pamela White, Dean of the College of Human Sciences. Ms. Luis Rico Gutierrez, Dean of the College of Design. Dr. Beata Schmidtman, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Dr. Sarah Ayala, James L. and Catherine S. Melsa Professor and Dean of the College of Engineering. Mr. David Spaulding, Raisbeck Endowed Dean of the College of Business. Dr. Lisa Nolan, Dr. Stephen G. Josgard, Dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Veronica Dark, Professor and President of the Faculty Senate. Ms. Laura Doran, University Registrar. And the many distinguished faculty representing Iowa State's academic departments. Please join me in recognizing them.
Dr. Jonathan Pickard, Senior Vice President and Provost of the University, will now begin the honorary degree presentation.
At today's ceremony, Iowa State University is privileged to bestow the 137th honorary degree in our university's history. Dr. Veronica Dark, President of the Faculty Senate, will introduce to President Leaf the distinguished recipient of this honorary degree.
Will Dr. Peggy Whitson please stand? President Leaf, on behalf of the faculty of Iowa State University, the Faculty Senate has recommended and the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, has approved awarding the honorary degree Doctor of Science to Dr. Peggy A. Whitson. Dr. Peggy Whitson is a biomedical researcher, NASA astronaut, Space Mission Commander, and former Chief of the NASA Astronaut Corps. In her 17 years as a NASA astronaut, she has spent more than a year in space and logged more than 39 hours on spacewalks. Dr. Whitson is a native of Mount Ayr, Iowa, sharing the BS degree from Iowa Wesleyan College and the PhD in biochemistry from Rice University. She continued her research at Rice as a postdoctoral fellow and also began studies at NASA's Johnson Space Center as a National Research Council Resident Research Associate, where she became involved in NASA projects. She joined NASA in 1989 as a research biochemist and worked on several space mission projects, including joint missions with Russia and the Mir Space Station program. In 1996, she was selected as an astronaut candidate and underwent 2 years of intensive training. Dr. Whitson has spent 2 extended periods in space aboard the International Space Station, serving as NASA's first science officer on her first mission and as commander of the second mission. The first mission was an ISS Expedition 5 in 2002, which lasted 185 days and included a nearly 4.5-hour spacewalk to install and check equipment. Her second space mission was ISS Expedition 16 in 2007, which lasted 192 days. As mission commander, she oversaw an expansion of the space station's living and working space and performed 5 spacewalks to assemble and install new equipment and perform maintenance. The 2 missions together totaled 377 days, or more than a year in space, which is more than any other woman. Dr. Whitson has also served as chief of NASA's Station Operations Branch, member of the 2004 Astronaut Selection Board, and chair of the 2009 board, and chief of the Astronaut Corps. Among her many honors and awards are the NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal, 4 NASA Exceptional Service Medals, the Russian Medal of Merit for Space, and the American Astronautical Association Randall Lovelace II Award.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, as president of Iowa State University, it gives me great pleasure to bestow upon you, Dr. Peggy Whitson, an honorary degree Doctor of Science with all attendant rights, privileges, and obligations.
Dr. Peggy Whitson will now deliver the commencement address.
It's really a huge honor to be here at Iowa State University today for this commencement. Not only are you guys boasting the Cyclone men's and women's undefeated basketball teams, but you have incredible scientific work going on, including the Science Dream team of Damarisson and Weinmuller, who are developing nano-vaccines, and I got to see a really cool virtual reality laboratory this morning. So I've really enjoyed my visit here. But today is actually your day. It's a very special day for you. It marks a day of transition. So the question I have for each of you is, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, or even 30 years from now? Some of you may already have a plan for what you want to do and what impression you want to leave in the world. And others of you may not be sure. Either is fine. But one thing I want you to do is I want each of you to make sure that you set the goals for yourself that are challenging and even extend beyond what you consider comfortable. In other words, don't settle for a course in life that seems easy. Continue to challenge yourself. I'm absolutely positive and unwavering in my resolve that each of you can attain something, some potential that you might not even be able to dream of right now. You might be thinking, how can she be so sure? Well, I was 9 years old when I watched the first men walk on the moon, and as a senior in high school, they selected the first female astronauts. And that's actually when I decided I wanted to become an astronaut. And luckily, I had absolutely no idea how difficult it would be and how much competition was involved in that. But after getting a PhD and 10 years of astronaut applications being rejected, I was finally selected to be an astronaut. After 6 more years of extensive training, I had my first opportunity to fly in space on Expedition 5, and 5 years later, a second mission to the ISS. Who would have ever dreamed that, not even me, that 27 years after leaving college in Iowa, I would become the first female to command the International Space Station. Maybe even more surprising. And maybe even more surprising, a couple years later, I became the first female non chief of the astronaut office, which, by the way, was, I think, even more of an accomplishment. This road to becoming the commander of the ISS and the chief of the astronaut office obviously took many years, and none of the accomplishments were even something that I dreamed of when I sat in a chair like you are today. Now, if I had, now that I've challenged you to live a little bit outside your comfort zone and push a little bit beyond what you're comfortable with, I want you to learn a few lessons from me so that it won't take you quite so long. Maybe you'll be in the place that you never dreamed of in less than 27 years. So hopefully I can save you a little bit of time. The first lesson learned is each of us can be extraordinary with a healthy dose of determination. I don't consider myself anything special, but I think the extraordinary determination, which my mother often refers to as stubbornness, has been a significant component of the successes I've been a part of. One example of this determination was during Expedition 16. Our crew needed to recover 5 work days of activity in a 3-week time frame in order for the subsequent shuttle to even launch on time. In other words, we had to make up a whole week of activity in a very short time. And it was a big deal because during that time frame, we were conducting spacewalks and using the robotic arm to rearrange the modules on the stations, checking out the new module operating systems, and so that we could connect the next module, which is another scientific laboratory. And it was actually some of the most complicated things we've ever done with just a crew of 3 on board the space station. So we coordinated and juggled a lot of the activities, working closely with our ground team. And each day we gained a little ground on our deadline. And you could hear it in the voices, the excitement in the voices of our ground team. And they would come up with some even more creative ideas and gain us another extra hour or 2 here and there. And as a result, we were able to pull off what most considered an impossible feat. So the moral of my story is extraordinary determination can be used to accomplish these things that you would not consider possible. Use that extraordinary determination in your lives and take yourself the fullest advantage of any situation. One of my favorite quotes, because I think it applies so much in my life, is from the book Illusions by Richard Bach. And it says, "You are never given a wish without also being the gifts to make it possible. You may have to work for it, however." So that's the part I want you guys to take away, is extraordinary determination. My second lesson learned, the most fulfilling and satisfying memories that you'll have will involve being a part of a team. I'm sure many of you have experienced this as a part of sports teams or a small group of folks that work together on a difficult problem. When I was here in Iowa, I had some fantastic team experiences as part of sports teams, and some of those team members are still my best friends. But look forward and take active action on expanding those team experiences in your future. The example I gave about working on the complicated problem during Expedition 16 is one good example of a team. But one of the most memorable teams I've ever been a part of was before I was even selected as an astronaut. I was working in Russia with a small team of 7 folks. We were responsible for negotiating agreements between U.S. and Russian science investigators, people who were providing hardware, and people who were doing the on-orbit day-to-day planning, people who were developing procedures for the experiments, and even hauling hardware. Literally, we had a ton of hardware. We had to haul up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. So it was one of those experiences in my life that I will never forget. I don't ever really want to relive it, but I won't ever forget it. It was a very special time, and I will never forget the contributions of every member of that team. So make sure in your life that you look for those opportunities to build and share the experience with the team. You aren't going to regret it. Third lesson, do what you can with everything that you have. Don't expect life or your future to fall in your lap on a pretty silver platter. If you do, you're more than likely going to be a little bit disappointed. I've been asked a number of times what was the most stressful situation I experienced as an astronaut. It was during Expedition 16, just after we reinitiated the deploy of a solar array. These are 213 feet long solar panels. They're really thin and very fine. frayed wire on one of those lines, we ended up with a 3-foot tear in that array. The array wasn't fully extended, and it was obviously not going to be possible to retract it because it was so torn. And without the array attracted or deployed, the shuttle couldn't undock. And if the shuttle couldn't undock, we were going to have to throw away the whole array. And that would have been unsustainable for our space station, and we wouldn't have been able to continue building. So it was a huge potential hit to our space program. So I was feeling a lot of stress. After a couple of days, the ground teams on rotating shifts working 24 hours a day came up with a possible solution. The idea was to bridge the gap in the tear such that the tension applied as we continued to deploy would not further tear the array. But we had to work with only the materials we had on board. There wasn't a floating, orbiting hardware store, so we only had what we had inside the space station or inside the space shuttle that was docked there at the time. Some really sharp guys on the ground came up with a plan to cut some metal and attach wire and add special tape and build what we called cufflinks. And they spanned the tear. And then on board the space station, George Zamkin and I cut and filed metal pieces and added wire and some very specific links in order to build these cufflinks. And then other ground teams